The kind of institutions that would distribute our media product would be ones which have had previous experience with horror film distribution and ensuring they are being shown to the correct target audience. The industries such as Maxim Media would be an ideal company to distribute our product to different audiences, as it's a well-known company, which would mean we have a better chance of making it a successful film, as fans of that company are more likely to go and watch it when it's released. This company is known for showing films such as Beast and Nightclaws, which we then based our film on. These films incorporate the four main aspects of a successful horror film, and many of these were due to the use of mise-en-scène, sound, editing and cinematography. This meant that after looking at these films in this genre, we were able to base our product on these aspects despite the lack of professional equipment that we had available to us. Not only did this help us create our film, but it also gave us more knowledge on the different companies who invest in films like the ones we've created, so we'd have a better chance of it being successful.
Throughout the construction of this project, we as a group have learnt a variety of new skills which have allowed us to create a successful film opening. We've had the opportunity to use equipment such as the Sony HD camera to record our footage on. Whilst filming, we had to experiment and learn how to change the exposure and zoom depending on both the shot and the level of lighting in the scene. Many of our scenes were shot in a wide variety of lighting, so we had to take into consideration how this would affect us later when editing our film. Having to manually change the lighting and exposure settings on our camera meant that we gained numerous skills we had not previously needed to use. Camera angles were another learning opportunity for us as well, as we had to try and capture as much of our surroundings as possible, but focus at the same time on what the actors were doing. We also had to take into consideration the amount of footage and the variety of camera angles and shots that we would need later on when editing in order to benefit our film. For example, we needed long shots, mid shots and close-ups to allow for a deeper understanding of the film on the audience's behalf.
We also used Adobe After Effects to create and edit our title sequence, to add a number of different animations and effects to our film, and also to bring to life our film company logo. Not only did we use After Effects for this purpose, we also use it to incorporate effects into different areas of footage, as it had many more options to enhance and develop our film. By the use of After Effects, we were able to develop our understanding of various film editing software.
So you know that girl
and also have knowledge in how to create
We used Blogger in order to keep track of our progress throughout our filmmaking process. We developed our knowledge on the process.
At the editing stage, we were able to gain more knowledge on how to import footage from a video camera, which would be extremely useful for any of the further projects we have to do. Premiere Pro also enabled us to add titles and sound to our film so that audiences would know who was involved in the filmmaking. One of the other things we had learned how to do was edit the different sounds that we decided to use. We did this by changing the frequency and pace of the footage and sound so that it fit with the things happening on screen and so that everything is in time and runs smoothly. Rearranging clips and editing the lighting was another thing we learned more about. After uploading the footage that we planned on using, we looked at the order of them and changed them around when needed. We edited the lighting so that everything on the screen was visible and nothing was too dark and unclear. The light editing took some time to complete, but the end product we believe was both noticeable and successful despite the extent which we did how to edit the footage. Not only did we manage to successfully edit the film and film lighting, but we also learned how to import and adjust the frequency of sound effects, thus adding effect to the overall outcome.
Looking back on a preliminary task, it is evident to see how much our group has progressed in all areas of film production. We have developed our editing skills, our camera work and techniques, and we have also used our spatial awareness and knowledge of effects and titles to improve our final media product. In our preliminary task, we were very new to editing software as advanced as Premiere Pro. Therefore, we could not use all of its properties to their full extent. Whereas in our short film, our group was able to do so as we were aware of the various effects, cutting tools and colour adjustments. Having the extra time to experiment and become familiar with the software we had access to benefited us greatly and allowed us to edit our film to the best of our ability, using all the opportunities to our advantage. Music was another major aspect of our film that we'd vastly improved upon since the preliminary task. As well as becoming familiar with importing music and sound effects, we also learnt how to arrange sections and how to lower the frequency enough to create a sense of unease, thus connoting the genre of our film successfully. We had not previously used sound effects in our preliminary task, so it was a new skill that we had come to terms with, and we believe we used this new skill to the best of our ability to add a deeper sense of horror and fear within our film.
We had a better sense of our surroundings in the final product as opposed to the preliminary task. But what we mean by this is our preliminary task, we did not consider reflections in mirrors and windows, thus being an issue. We also managed to use larger surroundings, choosing a setting more fitting for this genre of film. We also used a more fitting font in our title sequence, using strong colours and sound effects to emphasise the titles, unlike our preliminary task, where the titles were rather bland and did not convey the genre of the film we were aiming for.
The most evidential difference between our preliminary task and our final product would be the way in which we utilised the camera skills we had previously learned and how we applied them throughout. We thought strongly about the cinematography of our final product and which camera angles would benefit our style of film the best. We found that using long shots, close-ups and match-on actions were the most effective in creating suspense and thriller within our film as well as engaging the audience. The camera movement and angles we intended on using would affect the final product significantly, as we would have to edit and cut certain sections in order to create a basis of the plot, as well as to provide a clear understanding to our theme of horror. By using long shots, we were able to represent the idea of a stalker observing each character from a distance, thus also contributing to our genre. Although we used filming and editing techniques such as match-on actions and point-of-view shots, we could have used many more. We took this critique and acted on it in our final product.
Overall, we have learned many new things since the production of our preliminary task, and we believe as a group that our final production contains many of the aspects of our first project did not.
We used a variety of different subcultures within our film, shown through the actors' behaviour and appearance. For example, the main female protagonist in our film presented the theme of vulnerability, often associated with a person of this gender. We emphasised this vulnerability by showing affection between the two lead roles and then the departure of her character, the dark and empty pathway increasing tension and suspense within the film opening. The only male protagonist in our media project represented a protective figure, this being a stereotype or trait of a male, and one which is often seen in the majority of horror films. We followed the conventions of horror and aimed to make the audience sympathise with the protagonists and the unfortunate events that occur, hopefully resulting in a deep sense of unease.
We use passers-by in order to relate to our film to city life, through the way they dress, hoodies and large jewellery such as earrings, giving the idea that they belong to a subculture of chaps. Although this may not be spoken about in the dialogue of the film opening, we believe that we implied it very well through the use of mise-en-scène. The scene in which these two females are present contains diegetic sound via dialogue to express the characters' thoughts and intentions as well as to emphasise their social group. The use of non-standard English and strong accents allow the audience to connote their social class. Not only does their language connote the social class, it allows us a basis to expand the audience's understanding of the plot and reinforce the idea that information spreads instantly from team to team via the use of social media and gossiping.
The class and age of our actors instantly connotes danger and trouble, two aspects constantly associated with teenagers. It is often assumed that teenagers on the streets late at night are likely from a lower class background and that they are out to cause trouble and to misbehave. We challenge this assumption of teenagers by showing that many tend to be on their way home at night rather than out creating a disturbance. The couple used in this film allow the audience to see a different side to members of certain social groups and to reduce stereotyping. Having spent time previously analysing films such as Seven and Red Dragon, we were able to identify and evaluate the specific conventions typically found within horror and thriller films, and through this we were then able to apply it to the production and filming of our opening sequence. We used the website Incompetech to find an appropriate piece of music that would capture the true meaning of the horror theme and suit the style of filming we had chosen to use. The process of choosing our music took a while, as our film could be seen as an urban style movie due to the setting.
Our titles were not conventional to typical horror films because we had them running through the film rather than at the end. When we studied and looked at horror films such as Black Swan and Underworld Awakening, we found that they do not have the title sequence predominantly at the start of the film or running throughout. However, we realised that the title of the film appeared towards the end of the clip in order to keep the audience interested and to create an atmosphere of suspense and drama. The titles were often accompanied by loud, low-frequency drones that emphasises the text appearing on the screen. We took this idea and used it in our film to try and keep the conventions of horror films.
We used low-frequency lighting to make the scenes look unnerving, the lighting being a key convention and of successful horror films. We feel the urban setting of underpasses and beneath bridges really emphasised our chosen theme and allowed our film to be more relatable and understandable to a range of audiences. Not only did the time of day increase the tensions of our short film, the intense orange of the occasional streetlight formed a sense of suspense and fear of the unknown.
Despite not having the full large professional equipment industries have, we believe that we made the most of both filming and editing equipment provided. We kept to the main conventions of horror thriller genre through some aspects We kept the main conventions of horror thriller genre through some aspects may not have been covered in our film due to our restrictions and limits such as the lack of professional actors or industrial filming equipment in studios.
Traditionally, our final product would be aimed at a younger audience of a typical working to middle class background and being of a mid to late teenage range. The characters in our film were deliberately chosen in order to allow the audience to relate and remain interested within the film due to the similar age range. We not only use the characters' age as an aspect for the audience to relate to, we also use their relationship and friendship statuses in order to appeal to a much wider audience.
In order to gain an idea of people who would watch our film, we used a website called SurveyMonkey to create a questionnaire that would allow us to decide on film genre, as well as to understand the type of audience we would have to aim at making this film for. Not only did we use our own methods of research to obtain this correct information needed to plan our film, we also took statistics from the British film industry website in order to see how a variety of genres perform when released in cinemas. From this information, we managed to gather a sufficient amount of information on social classes, age ranges, ethnicities, and the most popular types of films.
Our film has predominantly female actresses, thus appealing to the audience members of the same gender. We researched horror films and made note of the different conventions that would attract a certain set of viewers. We tried to attract a mix of both genders by using both masculine and feminine scenarios. For example, the male going to the rescue and the female getting into trouble. These situations and themes expressed in our short film are relatable to young women, therefore will attract and engage them more. As well as concentrating on the gender of our cast and our target audience, we considered the setting and plot we wished to use in our film. We decided that an urban area in the middle of a busy town late at night would appeal to a teenage audience. Not only does this urban setting automatically be associated with teens, there is also a sense of inevitable danger, and we try to emphasise the issues and fear of the night often seen in horror movies. We took inspiration for our setting from films such as The Lovely Bones.
The costumes we had decided to use were typical of a teenager. The hoodies, jackets and jewellery were all items of clothing stereotypically worn by members of subcultures such as chavs and the relationships. We used this to highlight the urban style we had chosen to adopt for our film, and we felt that it represented the variety of social groups well. Additionally, the titles and music were also chosen to represent and correlate with our style of filming. Although it was a long process trying to find an appropriate font and piece of music, we eventually managed to find the items. We believe that our choices would appeal to the target audience as they matched the styles and conventions we had previously seen when researching our chosen genre.
If we had to advertise our film in cinema, we would run the clip through the advertisement section before a horror film, as it would relate to the genre on screen, and it would appeal to our target audience. We would ensure that it was not shown before the watershed and that young children were not able to gain access easily to our film, as it would be inappropriate for their age range.